I love that. I mean, and I want to ask you about something you really, you know, we had some breaking news. Marc was in the news recently. And I saw Marc mentioned in the International Business Times a story that came out right along the lines of what Marc is talking about, specifically under the ocean. I wanted to ask him, I saw a story in The Sun, a UK publication, and Open Minds, and it looks like Marc, in terms of under the ocean, kind of deviating or sort of in alignment with what you're talking about in terms of under the ocean. But Marc, tell us what happened when you were on a U.S. Navy vessel and they were talking about USOs.
Yeah, they didn't call it that specifically. And I'll tell you now, the whole incident lasted about I'd say just a few minutes, okay? But I was seasick, so I'm not a sailor. I wasn't a submarine sailor at all. I was.
Why were you on the ship?
Exactly. We call them boats, not ships. I'm just kidding.
It was a submarine, right?
Yeah.
Okay, boat, sorry.
That's okay. I was making a joke anyway.
No,
I was on the boat. I was on the boat because, you know, for some work I did, I was offered a ride on the boat, you know, to go along. And I said, all right, sure, that sounds like fun. So I went to sea on this thing and got seasick almost immediately. It was the best time I ever had being seasick, actually. You know, it's like, oh, I'm having a good time. Yeah, oh, you know. And I had to go to like the 19-year-old or 18-year-old kid that passed as a doctor on board, and I had to get like some seasickness medication from him. But I sat in the sonar, it's called the Sonar Shack. It's a little alley next to the command center, the control room. And I was actually just trying to zone out in the dark, which was kind of dim there. And I've said this before, submarines are loud. They're not really that quiet. They're quiet on the outside. But on the inside, you hear, you know, the rush of air. You hear lots of machinery. So the pride of the Navy is that these sounds don't get out. So when I was sitting there zoning out, I was listening to this almost like white noise. And all of a sudden, the sonar operator yelled for the XO that there was something that he didn't understand, basically, on his sonar. And the executive officer came around and said, what is it? What do you got? And they pointed to a thing. Now, like I said, you can't really hear everything, so I'm leaning on the chairs that are bolted to the floor, by the way, so I can't like slide the chair closer. So I'm kind of leaning in a very awkward way. And when the kid was asked how fast it's going, I clearly heard him say, "It's going several hundred knots, sir."
Oh my gosh.
Now, the only thing that goes several hundred knots, in fact 200 knots, is the Russian Squall torpedo.
How fast is a knot?
Well, if you look at I think it's the knot's like about 1.5 miles an hour or something like that, that, or other way around. But the bottom line is that a knot. Okay, this thing was going several hundred knots, and I saw there was a faint trace on the sonar. I didn't know what I was looking at, and the kid was just looking at the officer like, "What do I do with this?" And the executive officer confirmed that it wasn't a threat, and you know, again, we don't know what these things are, and he just said, "No, log it and dog it." You know, just log it down and hide it. You know, get rid of it, basically. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. So I got up and I went after the executive officer and I said, "XO, I'm familiar with these fast mover things. You know, is there anything I can help you with?" And he puts his hand on my shoulder and says, "Mr. D'Antonio, you having a good ride?" I go, "Yes, sir." He says, "Let's keep it that way." Okay.
You
so
said you were
much
doing
for
some
that.
work for them. That's why you were on there.
Yeah, you know,
Okay.
I've been doing Navy work since 1995 actually, and
Okay.
you know, my shop is that's why my office looks like a Navy vessel, because it's actually like a movie set. I've got rivets on the wall. I've got, you know, weld beads. It looks like steel plating. It's even got rust, but it's all fake. It's all painted. It's all you know, a special effect, basically, a visual effect.
That's cool. So he's like, hey, if you want to keep having a good ride, you know, forget
just
about
shut
that,
your mouth.
more or less.
Yeah. He said, you know, let's keep it that way. Don't ask questions, is what he was saying. So a few years later, and I never forgot that. How could you forget that? A a few years later, I had to do a job for the Joint Chiefs, and I was doing a project for them, and I had to go deliver a project.
What do you do for them?
I had to do special engineering models.
Okay, models.
Yeah.
Like what kind of models? I mean, like that's interesting.
Well, stuff with that is in submarine technology.
Ah.
Yeah, and so I build sections of certain things, and
oh wow.
Yeah, and so I basically I had done one particular pair of models for somebody, and I had to go down there, and when I delivered it, I took this guy aside, very, very highly placed person in the Navy. I can't stress that enough. And I said, what can you tell me about this fast mover program? And I said it kind of like, kind of like uncomfortable a bit. And he looked at me and he says, without even missing a beat, he says, I can't talk about that program, Marc. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Well, by saying nothing, he said everything. That's what I keep telling people. It's like, that's an important thing. So my conviction then is that there is a program to observe, not do anything with, these objects that they catch that do things that are far beyond our understanding. And to that end, the UFOTOG tube, the aerial anomaly detection system that Doug and I are doing, we have land-based systems that we're designing. We also have a sea-based system that we're designing, one that is basically going to be a passive floater that would float 30 feet or more down in the ocean and be attached to a buoy at the surface for transmitting burst data to us if it catches something. But it wouldn't be looking up, it'd be looking down. And it would be using sensors that could detect certain types of radiation that may be emanated from these underwater high-speed vessels. There's some effects that I think we can tap into. We're not fully sure yet, but if there's an alien race using an advanced form of propulsion, we should be able to find it.
Right.
Okay.
And we are.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. If it's us, then there should be no hunger. There should be no energy issues. I mean,
you're right.
Because this is something. This is something that is actually a very powerful energy source. Because if you can move that fast underwater, it means that the water isn't an impediment. And if the water isn't an impediment to you, then it means that you're somehow shifting out of its X, Y, and Z, all moving through time dimension that it's in. And if you're doing that, it means you're using an awful lot of energy. And if you're doing that, it means you have access to an awful lot of energy. So I don't think that it's ours. These are ours, because if they were, then we might have seen leakages into the private sector of certain technologies that we just don't see. And that's just my opinion. I could be wrong.
Who knows?
But
Definitely publicly, you're right now. There's no question. So, so when you were on the naval vessel and you saw this, did you actually get a glimpse out of a little submarine window of this USO, this unidentified submerged object, by chance?
No, it was only
on the radar or on the
sonar.
Sonar.
Yeah, it was only on the sonar. Yeah.
Sonar would be underwater, not radar.
It's okay. It's okay. But still, I mean, it's actually it's a common
right. It's a common screw up. People think about.
Well, a common
misconception.
Conflation. It's a common conflation of radar versus sonar. It's not a problem.
So you saw it on the sonar. Now, did you happen to hear anybody else talk about anything else they've seen, like any other USOs?
Well, actually, at one of the MUFON conferences, a Russian naval official was actually one of the guests at the conference, and he spoke for a full hour on the Russian programs to hunt these USOs as well.
Wow. So
I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, no, they're not. See, that's the thing. Because they're in the ocean, people want to look up, they want to look at the sky, they want to look upstairs for UFOs. But the fact is, if you are an intelligent race of beings and you come to this planet and you look over the planet, I mean, you don't have to really be too smart to look down and say, well, look, they're only on the land. Right. And there's little things that travel on top of the water, but there's really only a very, very few things under the water.
Yeah, there could be things under the under the, there could be a lot going on. Who knows? There could be a lot going on. Even, you know, under what's going on. There's a hollow Earth theory. There's a lot of things that, you know, people mention. Who knows? There's some people are mentioning Antarctica a lot now. What are your feelings on what might be going on in Antarctica, Marc?
I think it's just cold, frankly.
That seems to be true.
Honestly,
John Kerry went there on election day.
Well,
little strange.
The thing that I find is interesting is that a lot of these theories that people talk about for like Antarctica and the hollow Earth and all that, and flat Earth. Okay, that's another one. And that one's obviously false. But you know, the people that think the Earth is hollow and that Antarctica's got holes in it and somehow is the way in, it's like, the truth is, there have been some science fiction shows that have come along. I actually did some work for one, and it was on the basis of that there was a hollow Earth and that there was a whole nother world living inside the Earth. Kind of like Arnie Sack-Newsom and Journey to the Center of the Earth. You know, I mean, that was a great story. So we have a love affair with our planet. Of course, we have a deep interest in knowing what's down there, even though geologically, seismically, we do know. You know, Earth isn't hollow. It's not. You know, there are pockets down there, but those are caverns, and those are in the lithosphere. Those are in the crust. So they're not, you know, very deep in the Earth. There's nothing down under the mantle. Now, could there be creatures that live in the caves that we haven't found yet? Well, sure. I believe that's possible. I mean, we've discovered, you know, many creatures that in fact didn't have eyes. Okay, in violation of my symmetry rule that I was telling you about. But those were, you know, few and far between. You know, there's a lot of cave species that are very different. They don't have pigment in their skins. So, you know, that kind of thing is scientifically, I don't believe it has merit.
Well, let me ask you this, because I know what you're saying. I mean, and so what I like is NASA has come out, and we've reported on this starting last year, exoplanets. You know, they've released 1 trillion galaxies now, they say, up from hundreds of millions to 1 trillion. Each one of those could have billions of Earth-like planets. Water was on Mars, they say now. NASA, moons.
Oh yeah,
like you
water
said,
is all over the solar system.
But they didn't used to say this. Now let me, because here's the interesting thing. I want to get your thoughts on this, because you know, I have friends that are doctors. One lady I know, she's a Harvard doctor, and it's very interesting what happens with science. What I'm wondering is, if you want to control something, if you do want to, you know, Tesla was working on free energy. J.P. Morgan pulled his financing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you know, there was a tower on Long Island. It was really there, and he was really working on free energy, and then it went away. And we've been using, like, if you listen to Dr. Greer, we've been using similar technology since then. I mean, there's in terms of rockets and you know, we had Project Paperclip, which is a fact, where former Nazi scientists came to the U.S. and ran, you know. So what I'm saying is that doctors, she learns a lot. I respect it. I would go to a doctor if I got sick. But if you want to control something, you just control what the scientists study. You don't have to actually, you don't, what I mean is that, you know, if this guy Lakovsky was working on curing cancer in Paris with using the Schumann resonance and copper formations where people just had to sit there, and the natural resonance of the Earth. Dr. Royal Rife was a USC doctor. They had Rife machines where he was, which you can get at spookynumber2.com. I have one. This isn't just stuff that I'm thinking about. For me, I've experienced things which have been suppressed by science. I have experienced it. And my point is, you know, this is what NASA's telling us. Under the Earth, and even the flat Earth. We had the guy on. We had Mark Sargent on. I haven't been to space. There's no flight. If I could take a flight right now, you know, I think for me it seems round, and it seems like there's stars. I can feel physically, I feel like those are objects. I don't know, I just feel like it. But I haven't been to space, and I haven't taken a flight from Argentina, around down, around to the other side. And there are no flights across the southern hemisphere. So these things could be easily disproved. People talk about what's going on in Antarctica. They don't let you go down there. There's a treaty between 50 countries. You can't just go down and find out. So
no, but you've got 50 countries worth of people that are there at any one time.
Yeah, but that's the government. That's not you. We can't go down there, Marc.
Sure, you can.
We can go down. Well, there was a crew that went.
Absolutely.
Well, let's go.
You can. You just need to have the money. You got to get to New Zealand, and then you got to be able to be out of touch with civilization for several months at a time.
Well,
because the C-130 that takes you down to Antarctica and lands on the ice runways down there.
Well, the fact is the government has lied a lot. And the government can be wrong. They said every patent was issued in 1900. That there would be no need for more inventions. That there would be no need for more patents because everything's already been invented.
Well, I mean, of course, that's not. Obviously, that's false. Obviously.
So we get a lot of things wrong. I mean, you see Ancient Aliens. It's very popular now. You have Harvard guys, MIT guys. I mean, things are being questioned. So we don't know everything. I certainly don't. And my point is that if you want to control a lot of things, you just control the variables that science is studying. Meaning, if there is so you give people, in the case of health, you give people a lot. There could be cures. Rife was using frequencies. Now, actually, in the UK, they have basically a Rife machine treating cancer with frequencies, and it just it's approved in the UK. It's basically a Rife machine. My point is, what is your opinion on all of this in terms of science being shaped at the top so that you spend billions on things when there could be, much simpler things that are hidden that would sort of speed this all along?
I do have a lot to say there. And
go ahead.
The reason I do is because I've had experiences I can't explain as well. They don't fit within my pattern of science. And it all started back when I was getting my degree in astronomy, when I was really sitting down and puzzling through the logic of exoplanets, because at the time, no exoplanets had been announced. There had been some false planets named and so forth, but there were no exoplanets really announced at that time. So I said to the head of my department, I said that I believe that the universe is populated. I believe it's a populated universe, which is actually the title of my book, The Populated Universe. And
oh, wow.
I said, I believe it's a populated universe. And I said, just because, we're here, it stands to reason, with all of the many possibilities and the statistical probabilities alone, it stands to reason there's another Earth out there, perhaps millions of other Earths. And the chair of the department looked at me and said, Marc, get back in the observatory and leave Captain Kirk to us. So you talk about shaping the discussion, right?
Mm-hmm.
He just totally dismissed it and shaped it into his frame that he could understand. And as it turns out, he was absolutely wrong. And there are many, perhaps billions of other Earths in this galaxy alone, Earth-like, and so forth. So science often shapes the arguments in terms of what it understands and doesn't entertain that which it does not.
For instance, funding would get pulled. I mean, listen, if he, there's the bottom line is if people start asking too many questions sometimes, their funding gets pulled.
Yeah, well, here's an example. Another example. About 28 years ago, I had to have brain surgery.
Oh, wow.
And, it was crazy. I had, they said I had less than 8 weeks to live. So when I went in for my pre-op physical, kind of person I am, the surgeon started showing me the MRI, and I said, no, wait, I don't have time for this. I pulled out a rubber brain I made in my visual effects shop. I put it in the counter. I said, here it is. I took it out, fix it, give me a call when it's done. And I walked out of the office. And he came out of the exam room laughing and said, you're going to be just fine. And I was. But the point being, since then, and it started about 4 years ago now, 4.5 years ago, I was hearing conversations, not telling me to do anything. I mean, just hearing conversations like someone was talking near me. I'd turn and go, what's going on? What's that? Or I'd hear somebody upstairs. I hear my boys upstairs, playing around. And I'd say, what's going on? And I'd go up there, and the room's dark. And they're in bed. I'm like, whoa. And so I was hearing conversations, like I was eavesdropping on these conversations. I didn't know where they're coming from. So I figured, well, okay, let's be logical. There are many things this could be. It could be that my brain is replaying conversations that it previously heard.
Sure. And
just bringing them back in and to my to that part of my brain that relived these conversations. That's possible. In fact, that's what I thought it was. I ran with that theory for a long time, actually. Then, a year after that started, I started actually seeing people that weren't there. Okay, they were semi-transparent, and I thought, whoa, now my brain's really doing this weird thing. And I went to a neurologist. I got all checked out. They even gave me some medication to help me stay focused on what I was doing because they were so distracting. Everywhere I was going, there was these people and animals would be walking around that I couldn't interact with because they were semi-transparent. It was the weirdest thing. And I figured it's a medical thing. So, that medication didn't help. It did. It helped me focus, but it didn't get rid of them. So then one day, and I had met Doug in the interim, and we were working on a movie, and I was building this really cool prop for the movie, our movie that we're making, actually. And I was having a blast with it in my visual effects shop. And so I'm making this thing, plumbing it for liquid nitrogen so it can do this real cool smoke effect. And then as I was doing that, I suddenly saw this little, what looked to me like a dog, stroll into my shop. It just walked in, ding, 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 turned around, and it laid down. Now, it was semi-transparent, and I'm looking straight at it. This isn't corner of your eye thing like you get when you're tired. It's like, what's that? Oh, it's just my eyes are tired,
Sure.
Looking right at it, and it's right there. And I'm staring at it, and I'm moving my head and like this, trying to do 3D. And my gosh, it was actually a 3D object. I'm thinking, my brain is a miraculous organ. It's actually, I don't remember seeing that thing. Well, maybe it looks like a Pekingese dog. That's the only thing I could think it looked like.
Right.
So I walk over, I get up, and I start walking over to it. And it's not moving. It's still sitting there probably licking itself, and the way dogs do. And I'm looking down at it, and I'm thinking, okay, this is odd. I can see the other side of this thing. But if I was over there, like I was, and it was replaying a memory of what I had seen, then I would also have had to have gotten up at that time when I first saw it for real and seen the other side. So I was getting really perplexed with how I was seeing this thing in 3 dimensions. I'm just staring at it on the ground. And then I just did something else, which it changed everything. I stepped on it. I stepped into its space where it was sitting. And it got up and it tore out like immediately. However, it took my foot with it. It pulled my foot out from under me, and my leg went fwink and flew right up to the ceiling. And I fell down, landed on the back of my head on the floor, and hit my shoulder on the wooden workbench, giving myself a frozen shoulder over time from that. And I couldn't believe it. It was like someone had wrapped a bungee cord around the base of my ankle when I stepped on it, and it felt weird. And then if you wrapped a bungee cord around the base of my ankle, or base of my heel, actually, and then ran out as fast as you could, the bungee cord would stretch and stretch and stretch, and you'd feel it increasing in pressure. And then all of a sudden, you'd whip right out, and your foot would just go up. That's what happened. The thing is, I felt nothing pressing against me, okay? Nothing. It felt like 2 north poles of a magnet when you try to put them together. They go by each other. It felt like that. It felt like a repulsive force on the back of my heel. And I couldn't believe what I was feeling. I thought that was crazy. And I got up. I was in pain. I had I got a wicked headache. I saw stars. I hit so hard. And I got up and I'm going, wow, did you see that? Did you see that? And I'm the only one there. So I'm yelling at myself like an idiot. Okay, I was so amazed. And I tried to tell the story to several people. And they're like, uh-huh. I'm like, okay, whatever. And I didn't care because what that told me, though, see, other people would call those ghosts, okay? I call them something different, and I coined a phrase which is actually stuck to some extent. I called it a parallel universe intersect. This is something where I felt that I was actually seeing a bleed-through between one universe and the other.
Sure.
And that bleed-through location was where I was at that moment. Now, why I saw them all the time, I attributed it to the fact that I had this surgery, and it did something. The injury, the latent injury, as it matured, perhaps something happened. I don't know. I was a science guy.
To be able to see more.
Yeah, well, who knows? But as a
Right.
science guy, this stuff doesn't happen to me. Don't forget. As a science guy, that can't be explained by my science or anybody's science.
Right.
So
That's the problem.
So what happens when you tell someone like a doctor, the doctor
Oh,
tries
yeah.
to force it into something
Right.
he can
Exactly.
understand,
Exactly.
right? So that's why this long drawn out story. That's where I'm going. Medical science takes that and tries to wrench it. They wrench it around and they squeeze it and press it like Play-Doh to make it fit into that hole
Right.
that they understand. But it never was that shape in the first place. That they're forcing it. That's the problem with medical technology. That's the problem with technology in general.
And
We're
everything.
we're constantly forcing things. We're forcing something to be something it's not.
And there are agendas. I mean, there's a lot of money involved.
And
Unless
there is
you
that.
know who, why, and who exactly what's going on with the money, you don't know the whole story. I certainly don't, but I know
Right.
there's more to the story because
That's
they're
right.
talking about trillions of dollars for. David Wilcock had a great article about this, about the military, and they just submitted 2016. We've lost $6.5 trillion, and Rumsfeld said we lost $2 trillion on 9/10/2001 publicly. Now it's up to 6.5 trillion. That you could build like a country, or build. I mean, that's a lot of money. It's so much we can't even conceptualize.
Certainly, some of that money went to some part of the complex, and for building and investing in new technology that we're not privy to.
This is what was lost. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, but that certainly some of that went to new projects that we're not being told about.
That's right.
For sure.
Right. Dr. Greer's latest unacknowledged project. But let me ask you this. So, yeah, we're basically blind. I mean, they say that we see 1%, or okay, so visible light apparently is like 0.001% of the universe or something. Then they say dark energy and dark matter are 99.999, and then we see a very small fraction of visible light. And so, I mean, really, we're blind. Like when you tell me your story, it's just like, to me, it's like you were able, and when people, I've had experiences with things that I don't expect anybody scientific to believe what I'm saying about my own experiences, but I've had experiences where, for me, it's my truth, that it doesn't have to be anybody else's, but that there were things that I was not able to see that were real. And again, dogs and cats can see color, or can't see color. Does that mean color isn't real? So we're just basically blind. And it seems to me that sometimes science, medicine, and what, you have to work in. I think it's good with organizations where you're working on things so it can be real to people. I think there is an agenda by the CIA to make it a joke, UFOs and all this stuff. I mean, they actually paid Disney to do that. There's documents at the Disclosure Project. But it's just very strange, because all you have to do is tell people, well, exactly, here's the box, and you got to stay within that box. And yeah, sure, you can spend billions inside that box. You can have all your studies, but you just control the box, and it's very easy. And you got very smart people that can't really do what they're capable of.
Right, and you gotta basically stay in the box. You're not allowed to get out of the box.
Yeah.
Until it hits you right in the face, or in my case, in the back of the head.
Oh my gosh. Are you okay now?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Thank God.
Yeah. No, but the thing is, okay, that was the start of a bit of a revolution for me, in that I'm a science guy. This stuff doesn't happen to me until it does. And then now once it happens, then you got to say, well, now I have to kind of put that into something that makes sense for me. I got to put that in a framework that I can deal with. Well, there is no framework that exists that I can put that in. So, what I did? I created a new framework. I said, this goes here. Now we investigate this and figure out what that is. And I think that's how science should operate. When it finds something that's outside of its framework, it should say, new framework. Okay, here's a little box. Within this little box, we now have to investigate what's in here. Yeah, we know what's all this out here. We know all this out here. But this here, we don't understand. We're not going to try and make it this. Not going to try and make this into that, or this into this over here. We're going to investigate this as its own separate, interesting phenomenon. And that's the thing that I'm all about now. I want to do that. And UFOs, in fact, are just to me, they're just spacecraft from alien races or visitation through some other means by alien races that are more superior to us. Think about this. In fact, I'm leaving for a conference tomorrow.
Oh wow!
And for
which
my
conference
talk,
is that?
It's going to be the New England UFO conference. I do it
awesome.
every year. And this time, yeah, I just got back from Wyoming, where I did Devil's Tower UFO Rendezvous.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's beautiful out there. And as a matter of fact, I'll just show you real quick.
Sure.
That's my background. It's Devil's Tower.
Beautiful.
Okay, that's Devil's Tower as photographed, and there's an airplane going through the view. You can see it.
That's beautiful.
But and that's right before I went up to the tower again. This was at night, and the thing was, it was so dark that you could not see your hand in front of your face. All right, but at the tower, I could, and it was because the starlight was so bright. The starlight was why I could see my hand in front of my face. It was just amazingly bright. Oh yeah, the brightest stars I've seen in a long, long time. But so that said, for tomorrow's conference, my talk is actually going to be on the genesis of life on Earth, and it's going to talk about. I'm going to actually. This is a little crazy. I take the entire history of the Earth, 4.6 billion years, and I put it onto a roll of toilet paper, which I take out into the audience and I unroll it amongst them, and they hold it, and I go through the entire history of the Earth from the time it formed to where we are in that room, and I take them through the entire history, and with all the explosions of life that occurred in all the different eras, and I show them in perspective how our world developed, and how after a certain point we had this explosion of life occur here.
Mm-hmm.
And that dinosaurs, which we think of as ancient history, 65 million years ago, they're recent history. They're only like 2.5 feet from the front end of this 120-foot long roll. Okay? So they're recent history, whether people want to understand it or not. So this is the kind of thing that I think is very important, and so when I talk about doing, or when I talk about life itself and how the genesis of life occurred here, we actually can see how it could occur through the mechanisms that the Earth itself created, that meteors brought amino acids here, comets brought water and amino acids and other complex hydrocarbons, and the Earth itself made amino acids, like the Miller-Urey experiment in the 50s showed that. And then when they looked at the Miller-Urey results 50 years later, they found 22 additional amino acids they didn't even know that had formed. So it really shows that the Earth was a very prodigious provider.
Sure.
And it was all carbon-based compounds. So does that mean there's a template for carbon-based life? You betcha. There is. The only thing is that the only template? Well, we're all we know. So we can't say there isn't another one at all. But we can say
may have worked on that template a little bit. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. We don't know.
I wasn't there.
No. No, well,
but
maybe
that's
were.
Who knows? Maybe. Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's just so what you're saying is that your presentation, it goes through the entire. It's sort of a timeline to show what a great provider the Earth was and how all of these things were possible to kind of bring us about.
Right, and the thing is, we've had, and I'll label it this way, and then I'll adjust it. We've had 5 major extinction events on this planet. Okay, technically 3 by impact and 2 by reductions in biodiversity somewhere along the line. Okay, and when that happened, we noticed a tremendous downturn in the amount of fossils that were available. We also saw that some species terminated, came to an end when the actual asteroid type event, like at the Cretaceous Paleogene boundary, the former KT boundary event, the 65 million year ago asteroid impact at Chicxulub. Okay, that event actually was a bellwether, because that event paved the way to open holes in the record so that we could persist and so that we could, not only just survive, but be selected for survival. All right. And I do see natural selection at work. Even in the modern era, we see natural selection at work, and in different species. And the thing is, here we have a fossil record that shows us that had the dinosaurs not been extincted, so to speak, by the asteroid, then it becomes one of those alternative history stories where you begin to say, what would have happened? Well, we do know that some of the theropods were actually, at the time of the extinction event, their cranial capacity was growing.
Oh,
now, does
wow.
that mean does that mean they're going to become intelligent? Not necessarily. I mean, but it does show that there was an evolution going on within that particular theropod species, and they're meat eaters, a raptor. So if you think about it, that indicates to me that maybe, no guarantees, of course, but maybe we would have been talking to each other right here on this Skype call while admiring our tails and our scales and our yellow eyes.
Oh, yeah.
If it was different,
Sure.
So but see, I like to think about those alternative histories like that. And so without the extinctions, without the particular path that we wound our way through here on this planet, we wouldn't exist just like this. So I don't expect that there'll be another humanoid species just like us. I could understand if there was a species that looked like some other animal that we know of, perhaps.
Many people believe there are several, right?
Yeah, of course they do. There are people that believe there's reptilian species.
Sure.
And that's born out of the fact that, and you can't say it isn't true,
Right.
but it's born out of the fact that people also will think like I'm thinking, and that
Of
is,
course.
had dinosaurs not died, and if they went down the path, intelligence isn't the destination. It's a really circuitous and convoluted journey. So you don't have a guarantee of intelligence with any species. I mean, after all, the dolphin's brain is just as big as ours.
You're right.
And dolphins aren't driving cars and discussing astrophysics.
Exactly. That assumes intelligence means astrophysics and driving cars, too.
That's right. That's right. But what it does mean for us is, the ability to decipher our world. Now, we don't know whether dolphins decipher their world. Maybe they do. We know that they can
Interesting what the
reason.
definition of decipher might be, too, right?
Yes. Maybe decipher means the ability to reason at a certain level.
Or feelings, or the ability to be in touch with certain things. Who knows? It's interesting. But yeah, but as humans, right? Maybe they're not deciphering it like we would, right?
Right, and that's the thing. We can't expect that, not of dolphins or of an alien species.
It definitely could be different, right?
Yeah, would an alien species even have a concept of morality?
Anything, right?
We wouldn't know. Would they have a concept of male, female? Do they need to breathe? I mean, why would they have to breathe? Well, okay, we have to breathe because we evolved on a planet with oxygen. We actually developed lungs to utilize them for, as a natural selected thing to be able to, store energy and to be able to bring energy to our tissues. But what if an alien race did something different? What if they? Of course. Yeah, so maybe they wouldn't even have to breathe. Maybe they could survive a harsh vacuum.
So let me ask you this. I agree that and I want to ask you specifically about something that was actually involves Stanford. And it's an honor to have Marc D'Antonio with us, and we're going to have him tell us about his YouTube channel, which is a Sky Tour live stream. What would somebody search for to find your YouTube channel, Marc?
Oh, it's simple. You just go to YouTube and you look for Sky Tour live stream with Marc D'Antonio, or even Sky Tour live stream.
That's pretty cool, and I'm gonna have you tell us about that before we leave. We have a few more minutes with Marc. He's a busy guy. He's going to what is it? The New England
UFO conference tomorrow.
That'll be awesome.
And I just got back from the Wyoming Devil's Tower UFO Rendezvous, which was the first annual conference put on by Bob Olson and Lori Tucker.
That looks beautiful. I'd love to go to that next year.
They did a great job. They did a great job.
Along the lines, yeah, it's just so interesting to me that science, again, we're really blind. Most of what's real, even by scientific standards, we can't see. So actually, we're talking about, too, what we can see, and that's real because we can see it, but most of what's real, even by scientific standards, is not visible to us. Even if we're looking at what our visible light spectrum is, we see
that's right.
a fraction of a percentage of it. So all of these things too. I mean, if you're smarter than us and you want to get involved but not be known, you just simply aren't visible. And some of these UFOs go in and out of visibility. What Marc is studying, and there's a lot of photographs and things of things going in and out of visibility. Whether they're taking that quantum, they're sort of they're not traveling by light speed, but they're just sort of every point in space and time is connected, and they're just sort of phasing in and out and going to another point in space-time somewhere else. But Marc, there was a Dr. Greer, he took that Atacama humanoid, a 7-year-old that was 6 inches tall, and that Stanford came back and said was a real being. I mean, they didn't say it was alien, but it was the top geneticist in the world, and that was his serious disclosure. And they have this 7-year-old, when they took it to Stanford, and they say it's a real being, and I've never seen a 6-inch 7-year-old human. I mean, I've never seen one walking around town, and I certainly haven't seen a human that looks like that. What did you make of that? Because I like that it was a mixture or sort of a merging of mainstream science and some sort of validation. It wasn't. They didn't say it wasn't human, but he said in the documentary, well, I can't say it's not human, but there are some things. And for me, I just look at it and I think that's alien. What did you make of that whole story?
Well, I obviously the thing that made it odd was the head.
Sure. The whole thing was odd.
Yeah, but to me, I think that I don't believe that it was 7 years old. I think that's
think the geneticist was wrong? The top geneticist, maybe one of them in the world, they say?
Well, you gotta. I don't think he got it right, and I'll tell you why. I certainly don't know. I'm not a geneticist, but
and he was the best, I guess. The best. I don't know him. I mean, I'm not a geneticist either. I just know he's supposedly one of the top ones in the world. Go ahead. What do you think?
Well, my first thought was that the head to me looked like a being that had suffered ritual head binding, which is something that was prevalent. Especially in those cultures, and so I was curious whether that was that, and that maybe this was or it was an aborted fetus, or possibly a young premature baby. Not
by the
sure.
Looks of it, you're saying what about all the testing that says it was 7 to 8 years old? Scientific testing.
But they also said that they couldn't really get a really clear DNA.
I think that's because it's alien. By the way, it's funny when people want to get DNA samples. One thing that's funny about that, they say they want DNA. We don't have any DNA of aliens to compare it to.
That's true.
Right? They can't get a clear DNA sample because we don't have any alien DNA hanging around. But anyway, so to you, it just there were things about it that did, and it's okay. I mean, a lot of people, I don't know what the hell. All I know is it was cool that somebody at Stanford even looked at it. I thought.
No, I think that's an interesting thing, and I would very much like to see, further work done with it, because I'm not saying that it wasn't alien. I'm not saying that it was human entirely, but I do think that a number of cases like this have come up.
Nazca. What do you think about that?
What, the Nazca lines?
Yeah, no, the humanoid,
mummy?
the 3-fingered. I mean, I guess there's stuff out now, and some people are.
It was a special effects prop.
My gosh,
it wasn't real.
Wouldn't that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to create? They said somebody.
No. In my shop, we could. That's the kind of thing you could do in 2 or 3 days.
Really?
If you just had because you know what you do. You actually start with a model of a human, and then you just modify it. Now the other thing is, if you have actual bone structure,
that's what I was going to say.
You could take the little phalanges and you can actually cut them off and put them in you could pin them in with other organic material that will go unnoticed, and so it's possible that you could actually create this fakery.
I don't know. I've been to Peru, and if you can get a taxi on time, if you can get anything on time, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe Marc, were you down there? Did they hire you for this? Your skills, I'm just joking with you. I'm just joking. No, I get it. So you're saying, I don't know. It looked pretty intricate to me. I actually watched the videos, but again, I don't know. I mean, they have
Well,
DNA. You're saying it can be modified. So yeah, some of these things are BS. But you know what? There's enough of them. I mean, there's enough, and there's just enough that I love Marc's work. To me, Marc is like an explorer who really looks at things objectively and is at least open-minded enough to be involved in this stuff because he's had his personal experiences. Marc, we just have a couple.
I won't say that. I'm not going to say that any of this stuff is a bunch of horse crap. I'm just going to say
some
that
of it could be, sure.
Some of it could be, and it is. But you know what?
Not all of it, maybe.
All of it's worth exploring, and all of it's worth investigating because the answer is the thing that we need. Okay, yes or no. That's what we want. Okay, if it's no, okay, fine, move on. If it's yes, ooh, come on, bring it on. That kind of thing. Yeah, and that's fine. I have no problem with that.
I love that. I agree.
Well, I get it kind of in trouble with other people that are in my science because they think that I should be strictly hardcore scientific, and it's like.
What does that even mean? I mean, hardcore, we don't know a damn thing.
Hardcore scientific.
We don't know a damn
book.
thing. How long have we been around? A few, however many thousands of years, maybe.
Well, if you count Lucy, Australopithecus africanus, we're 4.4 million years old, right?
Which is very small on the scale you talked about, right?
Right. Now, that's what I wanted to talk to you about too. I just want to throw that out there just to give you more of the scale.
Sure.
If you think about this, okay, the Earth was 4.6 billion years old. And we didn't come along until, well, if you count Lucy, like I said, 4.4 million years ago. But the advent of language, that is written communication on a cave wall, was around 12,000 or so years ago.
That's what they tell us. Anyway, some of this could be, as far as we know, right.
But 4.6 billion years is how old our planet is. Now, the universe existed for over 9 billion years before that. Because it's 13.8, so 13.8 billion, 4.6 billion. Ooh, that's actually there's some more time here back. So what's going on here?
Right.
It means that other civilizations could have come and gone, or come and exploited the universe long before the Earth was even formed.
Yeah.
I mean, that means something. You can't.
Scientifically, it means something. Scientifically, it means there's so much available scientifically, we can't even comprehend what could be possible, in my opinion. I mean,
yes,
scientifically speaking.
Yep. Yeah, right. And it also means that if that's the case, if we do have that kind of possibility in our universe, then that means that we can't sit there and say, there's no such things as UFOs.
That's
what?
crazy.
I mean, that's almost embarrassing to hear someone say that.
That's
because
true.
It's not. You can't just be an absolutist here and say there is no such thing. How can you possibly say that when you know the science, when you have a scientific background and you understand that life? Here's the thing: we see planets in a sliding window of formation. We see planets that are just forming now. We see planets in the prime of their lives, and we see planets that have survived the death of their star. This is it's a sliding window of planet formation. That's happened since really, very close to the beginning of the universe, a little bit obviously later.
Right.
Once the elements were out there, because all the elements we're made of were made in the hearts of stars. In the cores of stars, in stellar explosions, supernovae, and in merging neutron stars. That's where our periodic table of the elements got all the elements from the interstellar medium. So,
Marc, you're right. I mean, I really think that there is so much more, and that to shut ourselves off, because, and you know what, I was thinking, I actually made fun of the Flat Earth Society about 9 months ago. I was like, yeah, there's still a Flat Earth Society. And then I'm like, well, I'm going to have the guy on. I mean, and he makes a lot of sense. I don't know. But the thing is, there's so much out there, but I can understand both sides. What I mean, not the Flat Earth. I'm talking about science wanting to verify things. Because I'm like, you know what? I haven't been to space. I don't know. So I like these people that say, like, well, I don't believe in UFOs. I haven't seen them. Where are the aliens? I can't see them. I actually understand that to the point where I had Mark Sargent on, and I think he's a good guy. And really, the government could just quickly put these things to rest. But I understand, that's what I love about MUFON. I love that they're into facts, but also they're willing to explore things, at least somewhat, sort of out of the norm. Flat Earth is a different thing. I mean, we don't even have to get into it because I don't know. It seems round to me, but there's a lot of weird questions that you know, and then people disprove them and whatever. But I can't take a flight across the southern hemisphere right now. I don't know. I don't know why. Because I guess there's no cities.
I don't know why you say that. You could go from San Francisco to Australia with no problem.
Well, you can't go from Australia to South Africa. You can't go from Australia to anywhere else in the southern hemisphere.
Well, Australia to well, I don't know what the flights are, but certainly
they connect. They connect up in the north. Trust me, these people have a lot of things. I don't know what's going on with that. It would be a very elaborate plan to, like, all these, you know. But then, like, the pictures of Earth we have from NASA, they were, like, photoshopped. Like, what's up with that? Like, there's, like, 2 real ones, and we're spending billions on all this. And so what I mean is there are enough weird things that where I'm like, yeah, you know, I don't know why that occurs. I don't know that the Earth is flat. I mean, to me it sounds crazy, but they say we've been programmed. It gets to the point where there's so much nonsense. There's so much nonsense where, you know, the fact is that the government, whether it's just because we're human and they make mistakes, and I love the government, they do a lot of great things. So they have streets and we have a lot of things. But, you know, that we get things wrong, and there's enough of it where now you have a flat Earth society, which is like having a conference because there's so many questions out there. So I like your overall point of view, which is to not demonize people for asking questions. I would agree with that, and of course we would say some things are to us not true, but it's just so vast. I think that's what you and I can agree on. There's so much out there, and I love your pursuit of truth. So tell us about your Sky Tour live stream, Marc.
Sure, and I just want to go back one second to on that flat Earth thing.
Sure.
Well, the reason I do not believe in flat Earth, I believe that we're on a sphere, and the reason I do, it goes to, you don't have to go into space to see this. You could see it every night when the sun sets. As the sun sets, you look, the sun sets in the west, okay? Yeah. And on the eastern horizon, you see this dark band that's rising up in the sky, okay, slowly but surely, as the sun sets. That is, as it's going below the horizon. What you're seeing is the shadow of the Earth that's projected onto the atmosphere, okay? That can't happen because the sun doesn't set on a flat Earth. It just recedes and gets smaller. Yet, when we look at the sun, when it rises, it comes up above the horizon, which they don't have an adequate explanation for, and then it should be approaching and getting larger, okay, because it's coming from a distance, and they're telling us it's only a few thousand miles away, okay, and if that's true, well then how come Venus and Mercury show phases like the moon?
I don't
see. They have all these things.
You're right. It's quite elaborate. I mean, it would have to be an elaborate hoax, but you know what? You know, I'm banging on this table, and Nassim Haramein, the physicist, it's 99.999% empty space. This table, you know, it looks pretty solid to me, but it's not. So, you know, I mean, but I agree with you.
Not if you consider the space between the atoms, the atomic particles. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what I mean is there's a lot, but yeah, I agree. I mean, all of these, you know, it seems like the sun is a real thing to me, you know, but there's just so much. There's so much to explore. It's a great conversation. To me, it seems round, but you know what? It's the scientific part of me in this case is like, well, when you start getting to go out in space and looking down, then you can see for sure, you know, because, I mean, I don't know, NASA goes out there and they send back things that are photoshopped and they open the door to these questions. I mean, I don't know. Why do you think that is? Why don't they just take a picture that's real? I mean, most people don't know the pictures of Earth are photoshopped together.
Well, I mean, if you're going to Photoshop images of the Earth together, the only reason you would do that is because the camera view can't encompass everything you want to show.
That's what they say, but why don't they, I mean, we're taking pictures of all these galaxies. Why don't they just turn the camera around sometime and take one as they're going further away? It's weird.
Well, the pictures of the Earth are taken from the International Space Station or from the Hubble Space Telescope.
They need to take them for something that goes a little further, and then they could shut all this stuff up.
Well, they have. I mean, we've got photos. Yeah, we've got photos from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, the most recent, you know, Earth orbiting or a Moon orbiting satellite.
Okay.
And that shows a perfect round. It shows a perfect Earth.
Oh, I don't know. This guy was saying there's only been one since the '80s. You know.
Yeah, that's just the popular, right.
I don't know,
stuff that they portray, and it's not true.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe we do have more. It is.
We do.
There's just some strange stuff going on there, and
Yeah.
and I don't know. It seems round to me. And NASA, you know, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I mean, we've lost trillions of dollars. I don't know where it's gone. I don't know what's going on. But I love Marc. So Marc, we could talk for hours, and I would love to have you back on again. Please tell us, if you'd like, about your Sky Tour live stream on YouTube.
Sure, on YouTube, the Sky Tour live stream with Marc D'Antonio is a place you can go to on clear nights. We look at the night sky, and I take people on a tour of different astronomical objects: double stars, clusters, stellar nurseries, dying stars, supernova remnants. We actually look at all these things in detail, and we actually do it with a camera that's really, really sensitive. So you don't have to wait for many minutes or hours to see a photo. You see them in just a couple of seconds. And this is part of the John Zach Memorial Observatory, which is a building here that I built, which is a full-blown observatory with a nice big telescope in it that sits over your head. And I take people, I have a mic, I talk to people, and I take them through the tour. And we go and look at these different objects, and then I talk to you about these objects and tell you where they come from, how they're made, where they're going to end up, what they mean to us. And it ends up covering all kinds of things. We end up talking about how we're made, the elements we're made of, and where that all come from. It talks about the star birth and star death and how that happens and what it means to us. If a nearby star goes supernova, could we be destroyed? Things like that. I mean, we talk about all these interesting questions. And I have a chat and moderators and so forth. And in the chat, you can ask questions, and we'll go to user-requested objects right there on the spot if they're up. You know, so I will take requests, and people can see something they want right then and there. And it's really cool. And then on the companion site, the Facebook Sky Tour live stream site, we actually put up all the photos that we took for that session, including the raw ones, so people can actually do their own image processing and try and tease more data out if they like as well. It's a really cool...
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a cool thing.
Thanks for doing that.
Well, the thing is, the observatory is actually a test site for our aerial anomaly detection system instrumentation. That is to say, our UFOTOG 2 instrumentation. And I've actually been 3D printing, actually right behind me.
Oh, wow.
Is a big 3D printer that I'm using to actually build these different mounts that I put on the telescopes out there, and I actually mount different instruments on them. So while I'm doing a sky tour, I'm actually testing instrumentation for the system. For the UFO hunting system. So it actually works out very well.
Some really cool stuff.
So it's a double-duty observatory.
I want to thank you for it. The UFOTOG 2, which the name might change, but it's UFOTOG 2. And then Marc D'Antonio's Sky Tour live stream, you can search on YouTube. And Marc's doing so much cool stuff for us. He's really, to me, he's like a modern-day explorer, just exploring everything that's possible, and he's a real hero for that. And I want to thank him for being on our show. Our website is www.believe.love, and our YouTube is youtube.com/Believe Loves You. Before we go, I want to tell you about Telestream's ScreenFlow. And ScreenFlow, how you get here is you go to www.believe.love/ScreenFlow, and we've actually made a lot of videos for our courses. ScreenFlow allows you to record on your Mac or iOS device, edit like a pro, add captions, and publish to sites like YouTube or Vimeo, all in one software. So ScreenFlow is a video editing and screen recording software for Mac. And so what you can do is you can make, you can record your desktop. So you can use it for presentations. You can use it when you're creating a course to sell a product. It's a really cool software. So go to www.believe.love/ScreenFlow, and you support the broadcast when you do that, so we can have really cool shows with people like Marc D'Antonio. And I really, go to all of his conferences, Google him, follow him. He's been in the news. His report about the Unidentified Submerged Object is so awesome. And Marc D'Antonio, it's been an honor to have you on Believe, sir.
Nick, it's been great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, everybody out there. You know what? You're going to change the world by sharing the links. You know, we talked a lot about being open-minded, and Marc has helped so much with that. already, just being open-minded, but also being scientific, you know, recording what you observe so people can't say, what, it's BS, you know, because there's so much we don't know. So I think it's just a great sort of middle ground there by being scientific, but also being open-minded, because there's so much we don't know. So thank you for joining us on Believe. Have a great day or night wherever you may be.